Today, Rinpoche continued the teaching on training the mind in the stages of the past shared with persons of medium capacity. He went over the 4 categories: the mental training, the measure of the determination to be free, dispelling or clearing away misconceptions, and ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. Rinpoche explained it according to Lama Tsongkhapa's root text and accompanied it with Jayan Sheba's commentary.
What Dangas Larich about the Larich without the Larich with the without the Landing, Chung in the Shushu, Jibus on the Shevashas, Chibichungu Landing Lang, Chibi Lang also the shade of work, Madaba, Chibichungu Lang, that Chibichungu Lang, and Tojan that told the Moto Hatame Madaba, Moto Hatame going to be Cheto. And the conjunction of Johnson to Yogone, Magajumo Sutin Conto so much in Debal Shatan Jevaina, or the Jevichung land or the Sare, or the Latin May Lieutenant to a high Lieutenant to a or the Manoa. That day they go out there and doing Jordan Jeva Pompe, Tabatubi land to Yago, the longer than the Jebin Jingle, Madaba. Tabatu Cheto, or the Tabal Chair land, 17 of Mulan, that Jebichibi land there, and the Saji to Agavayana and the Saji Aganandra, Jebichibi land. What the small two things about that?
So once again, we are looking at the text called The Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. And this text is a commentary or an explanation of Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. And at the beginning of Atisha's lamp, we find a stanza that states, "Understand there are persons of 3 capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics, or I shall clearly define these 3. So what are the meanings of these 3 capacities? If we look at them and break them down into those 3 categories, the small capacity teachings, or the pathways for beings of small capacities, are pathways for those beings who wish to achieve or want to achieve rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence. So in dependence upon the practices of going for refuge to the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, engaging in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then acknowledging one's misdeeds if one engages in any among those 10 non-virtues, one can achieve rebirth in the higher realms of the gods and the humans. So it is in dependence upon these practices, again, that one is able to achieve those results, the higher realm rebirth of the gods and humans. So these are the pathways for beings of small capacity. And by practicing these paths, one will be able to achieve the basis, which is the body of a god or the body of a human. The next capacity or scope is the medium capacity, or the pathways for beings of medium capacity. And these pathways are pathways which lead to liberation. And then the third category is the great capacity, or the great scope. And these are also called the pathways for beings of great capacity. And these are pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood. So these are the 3 capacities presented in that stanza of Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment that Lama Tsongkhapa comments on in the Lamrim Chenmo.
What did that Jimmy what the Kashugureta? Hatame, Del Chia, the Jimmy Chungu Imere, Hatame, Tenzin. What the Hatame does not to add that issue in that Kachi in and Hindu. What the Tamak, what the Hatam, what the Dragon Dabba Marbete. and what the Kasabure, what the
So in the small scope teachings, or the pathways for beings of small capacity, we find the goal is to achieve rebirth into these higher realms, the gods and the humans realm. And we find that there are many similarities here between the Buddhism and the other religious traditions, such as Christianity, the Muslim tradition, or the Hindu tradition, because in those traditions we find that idea of a goal to go to heaven or a God's place. So there are some differences that we find, but then there are many more similarities. Dixon.
What the conjugal of Johnson Jogo, the Maguju, Chudusuna, what the General Candesana, Maguju, what the Gandru and Gandrulan. Gandrulan, the Kaba, is not the Rujawaris, Marbe.
The Yanja Suran going in there.
Maguju, the Maguju Sabaina, outside, as soon as one do is, Maguju, the Gandrulan is, and then Gandrulan, the Kaba, is not the Rujawaris, Marbe.
Ngandrulang Kana?
Ngandrulang Maguju Sujingal, Ngandrulang the Kadu, then the Gandrulang is.
Okay. So if one accumulates the 10 non-virtuous activities, then these are called bad pathways or negative pathways, which lead to the lower realms of cyclic existence of the hell-hungry ghost and animal. But by abandoning these 10 bad pathways or 10 negative pathways, which are the actions of the 10 non-virtuous activities, one is able to achieve rebirth in the higher realms of existence.
Oh, that then what that Japanese to go the Kudunga. Let the Yomoba, let the Yomoba, Jota Jabakabi, Tabandra, what the Japanese land is a Malba, Japanese what the no, what the Nasu Karajure, Kudunga, the Khan, and Tabandra, but there were the Tabilan, Japanese land, Timangalas, and Japanese.
Koi doing a palm tarpi.
Doing a Bombay. Tabate what the Japanese toilet Marbe.
Okay.
What Japanese with that two be said to go more to with the Japanese lands what they in but
So the next capacity is the medium capacity. Just make sure here. So the next capacity are the pathways for beings of medium capacity. And this is, these pathways allow one to abandon the suffering of cyclic existence. And by doing so, then one achieves the state of liberation. So these pathways are also called the Hinayana teachings, or the medium scope, or medium capacity.
What the Ledan Yomoba, the Kaja do, what the Ledan Yomoba, the Kaja do, no quad and Ganu, Koa Marbe, Ledan Yomoba, the Magaba in the Kuala Kudu, or the Marbe, Ledan Yomokaba ina, on the Kud and the Sansar and Gane, Tabatum Wimre.
So if one abandons the karma and afflictions, then one is able to achieve the state of liberation by abandoning samsara, or by abandoning the karma and the afflictions, one is able to abandon cyclic existence. If one does not abandon the karma and the afflictions, one is not able to abandon cyclic existence. So if cyclic existence is abandoned, then the suffering of cyclic existence is abandoned, and then that state is called liberation.
Ta what the Nyomo Pipacha Ponji Land, the Tiba Chimbi Lans, Tiba Chimbi Lan, Nyomo Pacha Bombaina, and the Sanjay to the race, Tiba Chimbi Land, what things that is.
So the great vehicle pathways, or the pathways for beings of great capacity, in parentheses, allow one to also abandon the obstructions to omniscience. And by abandoning the obstructions to omniscience, one is able to achieve the state of Buddhahood. So the pathways for the great vehicle practitioner abandon those obstructions to omniscience. So by abandoning the afflictions and then the imprints of the afflictions, one is able to achieve the state of Buddhahood. So in the Christian tradition, we find a very similar idea, that by engaging in the practices or engaging in pathways, one is able to go to heaven, to some kind of a pure land.
What the Jesus the God will chosen to know what the church the heaven is, what to the
So by going for refuge to Jesus and God and practicing the religion, one is able to go to heaven, to the God's place, the God's realm, or as we call heaven. Religious traditions have some differences, but many similarities as well. So we have arrived at the section on the medium capacity or medium scope. So those of you who have the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, you can turn to page 265, and in Tibetan it's on 206.
Chobajude Sanjawa, Muni is Chobajude Sanjawa. Chobajude Sanjawas Dambaje, and the Mus at Dalai Chimasaji Lemure. That Chobajude Sanjawa the Le, Chobajuba, the Ne, Chobajuba, Narwa, Chobajuba Niba, Chobajuba, the what in Tamungo, the Jizun, what the Ruru China Kalikal Amandro. Geshe Lharampa tuji Chenmo deba nala Geshe Lharampa said what the choba divisions dos what the pesha do dan ha de ngolo de yore and choba josa yun damare mato chuju jun dan de Geshe Lharampa tamba tuji Chenmo deba nala Geshe Lharampa Geshe Lharampa so de jerme tu njambe yang ingre tu njambe yang and Jabeyan Chumbi in this Hajila Suba, Sama Injiroda. Jizun Tamba Tuji Chimbutan Demba, Nala, Guvisha Lose, Chuba Jubas, Dudun to which the Shatsa was Marbe, what the Lama and the Villa Shatsa Yinza, and the Shatsa Yinza, and the Shatsa the Gawaris, and the Gawayuta. Gawati in the Buddha Dawa Yungre, Dungan Gandre, and Sona Sabi May, Sambak Gandu Yungres, Najachu Vale, Sona Nami Deter, Dungan Tanchi say, Sona Tempe May Samanajun Rus, what the passing Chojo Kaka Duzunga Dabanda Marbe, Dojachu Vale, sono nami dete choba jogina sono sagare sono debetele dawayu gore dongen kana gore sono debe me sama kan ro ngures choba joba indu te pecha tsangu yo zonwote shugul mandi pecha sa so ane lel habu ngures sono debe me sama na so di sare kale kalandu na dizare.
Okay, so the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we find where we begin the section called Training the Mind in the Stage of the Path Shared in Common with Beings of Medium Capacity. So Lama Tsongkhapa breaks this section down into 4 categories. First category is the mental training. The second category is the measure of the determination to be free. The third category, hold on, I'm sorry, I apologize. So the first category is the actual mental training. The second category is the measure of the determination to be free. The third category is dispelling misconceptions. And the fourth category is ascertaining the path leading to liberation. So Lama Tsongkhapa breaks that down into 4 different categories. And when we look at Jayan Sheba's commentary, he breaks it down into 2 categories, and then within those 2 there are many subcategories. So we're going to go through both Jayan Sheba's outline and then look at it in terms of the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and the outline that Lama Tsongkhapa presents and put it together. So when we look at the first section of Jayan Sheba's outline, if we look at the 2 major headings, we have first the expression of worship or the expression of homage, and then the transition from that. So this is the first category, and then the second category is the actual. So the word actual is used, and if you just backtrack it, it's the actual training of the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, what that actually is. So that's the second category in Jayan Sheba's text. So the first category, we find an expression of worship which pays homage to, Lama Tsongkhapa pays homage to his teachers and to those desired deities. So the word desired deities means that one has particular deities that he or she has affinity for. So that's a translator's note. So those desired deities. So where we find it in the great treatise is here. So we have the major heading, Training the Mind in the Stage of the Path Shared with Persons of Medium Capacity. And then this first line, I bow with respect to the revered teachers who have great compassion. So Lama Tsongkhapa here is speaking, when he speaks of teachers, is mentioning his root teacher, who is Manjushri, but also revered teachers who have great compassion. Refers also to all Buddhas as well. So all of those great teachers, and in Lama Tsongkhapa's case, Manjushri is his root teacher, and then paying respect to all of the Buddhas as well. And so it would have that same kind of expression of worship. So what is the reason for this expression of worship? When you pay homage, or you have this expression of offering or worship, you accumulate merit. And by accumulating merit, you're able to abandon suffering. You're able to, because it is virtue, in future achieve forms of happiness. You'll be able to easily achieve whatever you desire, or whatever you wish to achieve. So when we look at the sutra text, I'm sorry I don't have the exact name of it, I will have it eventually. If we look at one of Buddha's sutras, we find a statement that's made that says that by accumulating merit, one is able to, and it's almost exactly the same, one is able to get rid of all of his or her suffering and able to achieve all happiness, all forms of happiness, and whatever one desires or wishes to have will be easily achieved or easily obtained. So we find this quote in the sutras that supports the reason for this expression of worship. It's for accumulating merit, so that Lama Tsongkhapa can accumulate virtue, which leads to those stated results. Dixon. So here we have this homage as Buddhists that we Lama Tsongkhapa pays here to the revered teachers who have great compassion. So we find this is an expression to the Buddhas. And if we look at other religious traditions, then we find very similar acts or activities. In Christian tradition, by paying homage to Jesus or God, it is a virtue. In the Hindu tradition, by paying homage to Shiva, it is virtue. In the Muslim tradition, by paying homage to Allah, it is a virtuous practice. So we find similar ideas in regards to paying homage to specific deities and then the virtue that is achieved by doing so. So then the NGK logo, okay, let's go.
jibu chimi lang sa ures. What does it take on to the marbe? Yeah, each of the
So the next section, again, Jayan Sheva's outline, we have two major categories, and we have the expression of worship and the transition from it, and then the actual. So we're under this first category. The first category, we find three categories. So we first have this expression of worship, which we've gone through, and now we're on the second category, which deals with the small scope serves as a basis for the medium scope, and the medium scope serves as a basis for the great scope. So the point that is made within this is that, and that with cyclic existence there is an end. So when we look at the Buddhist view of cyclic existence, we state that we have beginningless lives. So we state that there is no beginning to existence. So we have a previous life, and then a life before that, and a life before that, and then we posit that you cannot find a first. So we posit beginninglessness. But Buddhism posits an end. So if we were to say, posit an end to cyclic existence, or posit the end to cyclic existence, one would answer by saying liberation. Liberation is the end of cyclic existence. So the reason that there can be an end to cyclic existence is that by meditating on emptiness, one is able to eradicate the misconception that grasp at phenomena as being truly established. And by eradicating the misconception that grasp at phenomena as being truly established, one is able to get rid of the karma and the afflictions that it produces. And by getting rid of the karma and afflictions that the grasping at true establishment produces, one is able to abandon cyclic existence. So the root of cyclic existence truly is the grasping at true establishment, and the meditation upon emptiness allows one to get rid of that grasping. So this is how we can state that there is certainly an end to cyclic existence, that there is a liberation because of this abandonment that can take place of the afflictions and the karma by getting rid of what causes them, and that is that grasping. We're going to then read into the text, and then maybe that category will make more sense. Be mindful of death and reflect on how you will fall into a miserable realm after you die. Turn your mind away from this world and diligently seek a happy future rebirth. If you strive to reject sin and to cultivate virtue through the standard practice of going for refuge, and through reflection upon virtuous and non-virtuous karma and the certainty of their results, you will achieve a happy rebirth. However, do not be satisfied with this alone. After you have developed the attitude that is shared with persons of small capacity, develop the attitude that is shared with persons of medium capacity, namely disgust with all of cyclic existence. On this basis, you may aspire to become a person of great capacity by developing the spirit of supreme enlightenment. And if, in the Tibetan, you see the word, instead of on this basis, you would find really independence upon this. So more literally, independence, so namely disgust with all of cyclic existence. Independence upon this, you may aspire to become a person of great capacity. So I don't know if that reads more like this dependent nature that the three have with one another, but the Tibetan reads more like that. So I just found that just a little different, so that's why I presented it. So we begin to go through this. If you strive to reject sin and to cultivate virtue through the standard practice of going for refuge. The Rinpoche, the Ngages, Charan Jiangzhou Tuwa, Lobsang
네, 고조송을 저주로 집이 쳔비 네, 집이 쳔비 장 내가 소동은 지시자네 소소를 쪄서 줘로 내가 소동은 지시자는 쪄서 줘도 토모아레스 리더 토모아레 제비 친구도 네 제비 친구도 토모아레스 어디 고소 라운도
Okay. So here, if we strive to reject sin and to cultivate virtue through the standard practice of going for refuge and through reflection upon virtuous and non-virtuous karma and the certainty of their results, you will achieve a happy rebirth. So within this, we find points that are made. So the standard practice of going for refuge, this could be translated more like the common practice of going for refuge. And the reason the word common or standard is used is that it is in common to the other scopes, but here it's specifically talking about the refuge for a being of small capacity. So this is a refuge where the practitioner goes for refuge to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, in order to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. It is called standard or a common refuge because a medium scope practitioner also wishes to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence, and a great scope practitioner wishes to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. So it is in common. It is the common part of the refuge that the small scope has. So then it speaks of reflection upon, in the Tibetan it says black and white karma and their results. So if we look at the practices that are necessary for achieving a higher realm rebirth, according to the small scope, we find going for refuge to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, engaging in ethics which abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then if one is engaged in non-virtue, acknowledging that downfall. So we find all of those points, which are the pathways to the higher realms, made within here and in the previous points made in the text. So by doing so, you will achieve a happy rebirth, a higher realm rebirth. However, don't be satisfied with this alone. This is not enough. Just achieving this higher realm rebirth, just achieving this happiness is not enough. You have to then look at it as a stepping stone to the next scope. Or a necessary practice in order to get to a necessary practice in order to get to the next level or the next scope. So one should then, after developing this desire to be free from the lower realms and engaging in those practices, develop a disgust with the lower realms and the higher realms of cyclic existence, all of cyclic existence, and develop a desire to emerge in independence upon that. Develop the bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and engage in the great capacity practices. So these are the points that are made within the second category of Jayan Sheba's outline. Geshe Rinpoche.
Kowa tadala shenpa lupi samba je ne tala te ne shanshu chu tu sen je de sa ta jebi chungu samba jebi ding samba din to jebi chungu samba de marbe nga su du ne ta ne la ta me ten so tu na ne samba de jebi chungu samba je ane ku du ne ta ne taba tu na ne samba de ding samba marbe ding samba nga su du ne ta ne dendo tona냐 sambate ane jebu chungu to tumu sambares jebu chungu le sambate yoare dile te yoare jebu chimbule te yosa chungu to tumu sambayins ta tene ngasungu dongel tane taba tona냐 sambate jebu dile yoare teba chimbule yosa dile tumu samba wote suljan wor sedin sare jeba wote so kale lawu do kuzo kale do kwaje wura.
Okay. So when we then it says so Rinpoche read the part from however, do not be satisfied with this alone. So happy rebirth. After you have developed the attitude that is shared with persons of small capacity, develop the attitude that is shared with persons of medium capacity, namely discussed with all of cyclic existence. On that basis, you may aspire to become a person of great capacity by developing the spirit of supreme enlightenment. So if we look at what the thought of a person of small capacity is, so what is the mindset of a person of small capacity? It is a wish to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence, and also to be free from those, and then to achieve rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence. So this is the thought of a person of small capacity. The thought of a person of medium capacity is to abandon not only the lower realms of cyclic existence, but the higher realms of cyclic existence as well. He or she wishes to abandon cyclic existence altogether and achieve the state of liberation. So this is the thought or the mindset of a person of medium capacity. And then the great capacity practitioner wishes to achieve the state of complete Buddhahood. So this is what is meant by the thought. So if we look at this thought of a person of small capacity, the thought that wishes to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence, this is a common thought. Because the person of medium capacity also wishes to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. And the practitioner of great capacity also wishes to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. So this is a common thought, or a common mind state. So we see how these capacities depend upon one another because they have these common states that then allow for one another to emerge.
sentient tantric tanto saji ko tuban debi senche ba jen shela senje la gres senje ngodu je senje ban jen de shen da du sha ju de ne absama alankar ba what senje ga do senje ban jen de she da du sha ju de senje teba chemi senje se ga de senje tantric tanto saji ko tuban debi senche ba jen shela senji la ures anda tu janjunde anda tu janjunde saji ko to ban debi senche ba senche la sagres
the shandun okay nge chengi
ya senji ban jende anda tu janjunde
okay lesso so on this basis you may aspire to become a person of great capacity by developing the spirit of enlightenment. What is the spirit of enlightenment? What is bodhicitta? This is a wish for enlightenment. When we look at the definition in the Abhisama Alamkara, Maitreya's ornament for clear realization of the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta, it says the wish for the enlightenment for the sake of others. Or seeking a wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of others. So this is the definition of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And this practitioner wishes to achieve or wants to achieve the state of complete Buddhahood. So this mind state, this thought or mind state of this practitioner is doing practices in order to become a Buddha. And if we look at the definition, the wish for enlightenment for the sake of others, so wishing to become a Buddha for the sake of others. So this is what the mind that aspires to enlightenment is, and this is a great vehicle practice which leads to Buddhahood, so a Mahayana practice. Diksan.
Oh yeah. 세제바 다 산지고 도도 센치바 된질 센질로도와 다 이슈도 고들로데 센지서 어데 남이 주는 시바 나지 되어마데 해빙 투하고 되어 여들어와 what 센지 잡은 것도 있어
so drop them in do drop you okay So Christianity doesn't have this mind or thought as Buddhism does to, in Buddhism, this wish to become a Buddha. But we do have a wish that's present, a wish to go to heaven. So Christianity is similar in that way, that there is this aspiration or wish. In Buddhism's case, a wish to become a Buddha, and in Christianity's case, a wish to go to heaven, or to heaven.
Shangju de Senji de Teba Chembi Senji Ban de Yende Yanda zu Shangju de Teje Senji Teba Chembi Lan Jugures, Jiangzhou de Nanbin Jugures, on the Hag Jugures, what the Son de the Dabom de
The Techen
Senji Teba Chembi Jugures.
Okay, Techen
Jiangzhou Nanbin Jugo.
Oh, okay.
On and tantric Jugures.
Okay. So the mind that aspires to enlightenment, which is defined as a wish for enlightenment for the sake of others, is the door into the Mahayana, or the entrance into the Mahayana, or great vehicle. As refuge is the entrance or the door into Buddhism, and an initiation is the entrance into or the door into Tantrayana. The mind that aspires to enlightenment is the door to the Mahayana.
What the Shangju de Senji de Jibu Chenmo TV, Jibu Chunring Samba Jangu this, Jibu Teba Chembi Regentus, Jibu Chembele Tina, Jibu Chunring Samba Jangu this, Sanji Gotubala, and then Sanji Gotubala, Shangju Sembil, Jibu Chembi Lang. Modern Jogumar, Chimbi Lang to Yuala, did not Tumulang, Modern Jogumar, did not Tumulang Yuala, Chung the Tumulang, Mother, what does one you want to Chung did the Chuji, which was on the Shevas.
La Dene, the giant shape. Okay, so in order to achieve complete Buddhahood, one must engage in the Bodhisattva path. One must engage in the great vehicle path. But in order to achieve the great vehicle path, one must engage in the medium scope practices. One must engage in the medium scope practices. So the Bodhisattva path, or the great scope practices, are dependent upon the medium scope practices. And the medium scope practices are dependent upon the small scope practices. So this is why we state that these are common practices, teachings shared in common with small capacity, common with medium capacity, because even the Bodhisattva path requires all of these earlier thoughts that the practitioners of the lesser capacities have as their basis of mind state, or their base mind state.
What this is
what is stated.
Data Lami Gobon to Jans, Lami Gobon to Jan, Nuji Dungel Mandivis, Tela Raji Doan Zimba, Shinji Lu Yimbe, Yan Tabana, Doa Mabal, Hayan, Nandu Naba Ton Yu, Tang Ebishirosa, Bana, Tamata, Yansa Tonwa, Yanka. Ngeso agente so what is it what that ne chibi na trigu ta chibu ne chibi chung na la den la da me de tu jang chaban du ji du nge ma tu la da me de tu chibi chung de ne to ja de la da me de ro da what the chaban du ji du nge du chaban du ji du nge le ma de bes Tela Raji Jidawan Zeba, Chaban Duji Dungan Tele, Raji Jidawan Zeba, Raji Dungan Doan Zeba de Lulu Sheres, Shinji Lu Yimbe, Yan Tabana Doa Yomaris, Dungan Yimbe, Doa Mabal Layan, yang kora jane ngasol chemel jedun koyong gres nganu ngaba ton yu ta ngabi shiros bana tamata yang sa ton yang kar ngaso jinde yang sa no sa ganji yang sa ka te ngaso jade da bram te no sa res
Lessa.
ku dendu hada me tan to na nego zer zang re ma to yang ja ngaso chi kora ku no res what is on the side so in the what did you just know all shoju to drunk do.
So then, consequently, you must train in the attitude of a person of medium capacity. Why? Because even were you to reach the level of a deity or human, you would be mistaken if you believed this to be a pleasurable by nature, since you would still not have escaped the suffering of conditionality. Therefore, in reality, you would have no happiness whatsoever. Your life would still come to a bad end, for you would surely fall into a miserable realm again. A human or divine lifetime is like resting on a precipice just before falling into the abyss. So here, one mistakes one mistakes happiness. I'm sorry, one sees all of the pleasures within the cyclic existence, and specifically in this case the human realm, as true happiness. But because they are not always happy, because they are not pervaded with happiness for forever or always happy, they are necessarily the truth of suffering. And if we engage in the small scope practices, we are able to achieve rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence as humans and as gods. But no matter what, if we are in the higher realms of cyclic existence, we necessarily have the pervasive compounded suffering, which is here translated as the suffering of conditionality. So if we are born in those higher realms, no matter where we are, we have pervasive compounded suffering. So therefore, these things that we mistake for happiness are really truly just suffering. But we do not see the danger. We see we see our experience, the experience we are having, as happiness. But we are truly standing on the edge of a cliff and will necessarily in the future fall. And here the fall means to the lower realms of cyclic existence. So one is only abiding and passing time on this precipice, and it is not truly a pleasurable state. It is just a moment before the next great suffering. So because of the pervasive compounded suffering that's present, one will take on rebirths again and again. And then we have a quote from Shanti Deva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds. Chutsu Jibalesan. Shunju Lagu. Okay, we're going to take a short break.
Gaso dongene yori meze na so hons wata jebu chungu la tene dendu ko mo yana ya do tu dendu do yana ya de jene shene ngaso dongene yori meze na so hons ya ja ngaso hons res wata jebu chungu la tene dendu de na so tu res dendu yana ya tu ne ane dendu do mo jene ya ja ngaso hons res ko chaban duji dongeres shinji lores what is on the sarwa tama de khunruwa.
So we have a quote from Shanti Deva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or engaging in the Bodhisattva's deeds, and it says, after repeatedly coming to happy rebirths and experiencing much joy there, you die and fall into the protracted and unbearable suffering of the miserable realms. So here, in dependence upon the pathways for beings of small capacity, one is able to achieve rebirth in the happy realms, or the higher realms of cyclic existence. So even though one is able to achieve this again and again, in the future, one will again have to fall to the miserable realms or the lower realms of cyclic existence as he or she has before. This is because of the pervasive compounded suffering that one has, that a being in cyclic existence has. Even though one is experiencing a state of happiness, this will end, and then a state of suffering, of unbearable suffering, will arise.
Tayan Loma la timber which down Loma timber te Santa Comer Mala. Santa Comer Loma timber le Jan Kanji Ku Koltato Joy not to show ne Dewatan la December Tenengaba Ome Rinji Jatato Roanya Tamanya Nazo Chamba Jorosa Loma la timber that Santa Comer. Santa como Guinea and Nalenta Keba or the Guinea Marbe, and there was the cook of the Sudwata, Kanji Kolatato, Homala Timbales, Kanji Ku Kolatato, Joane, not to show ne, the Watan la Decembers, Chibuchungu la Tene, Hatame, Tazanto, Hatame, and the Doama Jene. And the Wazala not the way December, Tenengaba, Rayo Mars, Ome Rinji Yaja, Jatato, Ruanya Domania, Gundo, Chambanjuros, then to the gun to call Kunugaris. What then do what are.
So next we have a quote from Chandragroman's letter to a student. And Chandragroman was a Nalanda master who was a householder. And the quote states, "You who whirl constantly in cyclic existence, yet who enter a happy realm, mistaking mere calm for happiness, will certainly wander helplessly through hundreds of like and unlike realms." So here this is stating that those who are circling cyclic existence and achieve a higher realm rebirth mistake those forms of suffering for happiness. And as a result of this mistake, one will have to, in the future, not only as a result of this mistake, one will be reborn again. And where will one be reborn? In like and unlike states. So forms of happiness, but then also forms of suffering because of this mistake that is taking place.
What the Janji with us had just one battery, Chubajo, the Sanja, the Sonshene, Tassombandere, and then Somba de la Watere, and then Somba Ku Pensula, Shenlu Magunas, Madrid, Gunribanes, Ku Pensu, Latame, Tenzin, Yabumo, Ku Pensula. What the Dunga Raji Shinjulu, but the Maguna and the call Drugmares, the call Drugmaret, and the what the call Shinganju somewhat Gungures. Tish Dendria, Nandutan Drawa, Shinto Jua Shakutesa. Tish Dendria, Nandutan Drawa, Shinto Jua Shakutesa. Dendul Hadami, later Nyomo Hadami, Tazantea, Nandu Tandawa, and the Shintu Chua Nanjung Samba Gungures, Chua Shakute, Jijabale, Kebanana, Turejan, Nyama Tansun, and Gigi Joro, Nabakundo, Tenala, and Shigan Jiba, Mijikunsa. Tak jejabe wate segdo jejabe wate keba duzoge le de nyomo ngjon lai tenzan to soya niwa dan somba shigo res marbe niwa le shiba naji na wate hadam le de nyomo ngjon hadam me tende le shigo res ko karesna le de nyomo ngjon ware ne solo masano gres nyon tabres mar jiba jigores jejabale kebanan ture chang ture la da me tenzan chang nyon dan tombas nyon sinon la banaji ne la le da nyon mo engagé kuiten de la sinon la gores jeje joro naba kuntu tanala ane sekan jiba meje kunz keba so ode lada me tenzan meje ke yo mare kanga higo res meje kunbor is what about jujana.
So then now we come to the third category which is that you have to reverse the attitude. So there are many things within the higher realms of cyclic existence that seem like excellent things. But these things are suffering. Because they are brought on by karma and affliction. So if one is in a basis of a human or a god, but this basis is brought on by karma and afflictions, then it is necessarily suffering. One needs to become disenchanted with not only the lower realms, but the higher realms as well, and just as disenchanted in terms of goal, because those higher realms are also come into being because of karma and afflictions. So this is the third category of the reversal of the Rinpoche, the Jayan Sheba, the Sache, the Chutsu Sumba, the Gut Sogadu, Chutsu Nipa, Kabar Ka, Chutsu Sumba, Kabar Gutso.
Sumba Teneroa, what the Nipa Teneba, and Roman Timbales, Kanji Kolutato, Joai, not Shune. Dewa Zangla, December, Tenengaba, Ome, Rinji Jarato, Ruanya Dominion, Kun to Chambanjuro, Jason Soso, Nibadro, Somba Teneritis.
Okay, near the Datala, near the Junala. Okay, so Chandra Groman's letter to a student, quote, ends the second category of Jayan Sheva's outline. The third category begins just as I said, so I just want to make sure that I'm being clear with the outline as we're going through. Number 3, the reversal of this attitude is consequently you have to become as thoroughly disenchanted with the happy realms as you were with the miserable realms. Referring to the previous section this is dependent upon, which is the small capacity. So that's just as a note. As you were with the miserable realms. As Arya Deva's 400 stanza says, high states frighten the wise as much as hell. Rare is the state of existence that does not terrify them. Here, the practitioner is equally seeing the suffering of the higher realms, and at this point the practitioner is seeing the suffering of the lower realms and the suffering of the higher realms to be the same. He or she becomes just as disenchanted with, wishes to emerge just as much from the higher realms as he or she does the lower realms. So here we're speaking of a desire to definitely emerge. So this is one must necessarily develop the state of renunciation in order to be free from the 6 realms of cyclic existence. So one must become disenchanted with even the things that seem excellent within cyclic existence. And why must one become disenchanted with them? Because they are suffering. Why are they suffering? Because they are come about from karma and affliction. So here in Arya Deva's 400 verses it says that scholars are scared of the higher realms of cyclic existence, of the gods and humans, as they are of hell. And that's because they are the same in that they are brought about by karma and afflictions, and scholars know that they're produced by the same negativity. The higher realms and the lower realms are produced by that same negativity. So this is that number 3 in Jayan Sheba's outline.
Yeah, that what there. That the that the then we do no jang do. Then we do ba le jang. Kwa chabi yitan den na ta khurus khol chabi. Le dan yo mo onju khol chaba yogen to khol khogres. Khol khogres marba. Ta to khurusa. Kwa chabi yitan den na khol de cha yobe kenge ane kaza to kholo khol khoya khol cholen de gres. She dance. Loma timba lejang, cheta roa, kun la, di ducheje, cheta roa kun la, leta nyoma mokshin roa kun la, ne di ducheje, ne dunge salma tamba je, di ducheje, teta, temu shinto, tobun jurus, temu peungres, ne leta nyoma mokshin le, what they call the one Zibaina, and what they temu peungres, Tobun Joro, Cheta, Roa Gula, Dungen Dushis, and then Kazulet, Dungen Kaza, Sajik Dungen Marbe, Duji Taji Mataba, Saji Taji Dungen once. Ne leta nyama mo shu kwan de bata chebate dunghewa yana san taba ina wate tumu te chunro jagres tumu samun joro sa cheta toba gomba shinto na pena tata decha majiro do leta nyama mo shu kwale ne doa gomba ina ne what in the cha peungres the cha majin ba yungres chon joro cheta maduba go le do nyamo mo saji thaji dungyo go ba ina and what the tata the cha maje she wan joro the cha maje ma chun ro yagres what the son do she toma me ba ne sibi pensula de wan zimba Sebe Pensula the ones about Dubi, Naba, Drundo, Bicumbi, Niebo Tele, and the Sebe Pensula the Watan, and Casore, Dubi, Naban, Zebulu, the Niebo Caragun, Maduba, Marba, the Saga Niebo Maduba, Country Niebo Shamba, and then Tamungi Niebo Tende. What the Sukan did and Jabamudu, Kupasha Tabare, Ramadu, the child near Muduba Gungure, and then the moon near Dande Gungure, and the country number Shamba Gungus, the Valeda.
Dixon.
Yeah, what did you?
Okay, so also the verse summary of Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines says, those whose minds are attached to cyclic existence will continue to wander there constantly. And then it says from the letter to a student. So again, this is Chenrezig Roman's text. The more you conceive, actually I'm going to go back to this, I'm sorry. So the verse summary of the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines is stating that it is necessary to achieve a desire to definitely emerge. Without it, then one will constantly wander in cyclic existence constantly. So one must change that attachment to a desire to emerge from it. Attachment to it, to a desire to emerge from it. So that's the point of this. If one does not do so, then one will have to repeatedly be reborn within cyclic existence. Then Chenrezig Roman's letter to his student states, the more you conceive all beings as happy, the more dense the darkness of your delusion becomes. The more you conceive all beings as suffering, the more the darkness of your delusion lessens. The more you contemplate what is pleasant, the more the flames of attachment spread. The more you contemplate what is unpleasant, the more the flames of attachment abate. From beginningless time, you have been conditioned to believe that the wonders of cyclic existence are sources of happiness, and you have habitually projected upon them a false image of beauty. But if, as a remedy, you train yourself to meditate on suffering and unpleasantness, you will put an end to these wrong ideas. Chenrezig Roman says that if you neglect to meditate on these, ignorance and attachment will increase, and you will continue to fuel the process of cyclic existence. Hence, it is vitally important to meditate on the faults of cyclic existence. So it's necessary to develop a desire to definitely emerge that arises from this meditation or this familiarization with the faults of cyclic existence. So in Chenrezig Roman's letter, it says, you conceive all beings as happy. So when we look at the seals of Buddhism, we see that all compounded phenomena are impermanent, all contaminated phenomena are suffering. Here, this is the mistaken view that sees a contaminated phenomena as happy. So by mistaking suffering for happiness, one's delusion increases. So it says the dense darkness of your delusion, the more dense the darkness of your delusion becomes. And then the more you conceive of the correct idea that all beings are suffering, that all contaminated phenomena are suffering, the more your delusion lessens, the darkness of your delusion lessens. So here, the more you contemplate what is pleasant. This word is chosen as pleasant. It's the same one that when we say the antidote to attachment is meditation upon ugly. So the opposite of it is the word that they've chosen for pleasant, which we would say just literally not ugly or not impure, because sometimes we translate it as impure. And then this unpleasant is a different translation for ugly or impure. Sometimes it's translated as. So it gets at that in a minute. But when the more you contemplate what is pleasant, so when you think about your mind begins to think about that which is impure as pure, then one's attachment becomes greater. If one recognizes that which is impure as impure, or here the chosen translation unpleasant, so that one recognizes that that which seems to be pleasant is unpleasant, then the flames of attachment become smaller, one's attachment decreases. So in looking at the various antidotes that Buddha presented, he stated that if we are looking for an antidote or a remedy for attachment, then one would meditate upon ugliness. Or again, this is translated as unpleasant, on the unpleasant. If one needs a remedy or an antidote for anger or hatred, then it's necessary to meditate upon love. If one needs a remedy or an antidote for delusion or ignorance, then it's necessary to meditate upon dependent origination. Now we get into those kinds of remedies or antidotes, and we find the first presentation here in regards to the antidote for attachment, which is meditation upon the unpleasant or the impure or the ugliness, ugliness of things. We see that this is presented here. So then it says, from beginningless time you have conditioned to believe that the wonders of cyclic existence, this word wonders is the one that's always translated as the excellent things. So we see the excellent things of cyclic existence as happiness, but they're actually forms of suffering, and it's a false image of something that is beautiful or a form of happiness, because it's truly suffering. So it says, but if you, as a remedy, you train yourself to meditate on suffering and unpleasantness, so recognizing that that which is happy is actually suffering, recognizing that which seems to be pleasant is truly unpleasant. By becoming familiar with these two realities, you will put an end to these wrong ideas. And then we China Groman that if you neglect to meditate on these, ignorance and attachment will increase, and you will continue to fuel the process of cyclic existence. So going up to that letter to a student, and if you don't get rid of, if you don't recognize the reality of suffering and unpleasantness, then your delusion, ignorance and attachment will increase.
타바 드르지 줄로 그녀보다 타바 드 많이 베시소나 타바 드르지 줄로 내고도 타바 들라체 많이 베시소나 타바 드르지 줄로 내고 말보다 타바 드 많이 베시소나 타바 드르지 줄로 내고 엔터도 도도와 대나지 단다 토마 매바네 그 변소라 대완전 바다 두비 나반제바 녀보들 로셰로 둔도로다 어디 녀보들 가르 공부로서나 녀보도데 녀보데 동해와 공부를 그 봐서 동해와구나 안에와데 모두 동해와 공부이나 도바다 도안제버들 넣는데스 타바 드마미 셰소나 드르지 롤 넣어나제 그 봐서 동해와 공부나 와데 도안제버들 넣는데스
Dewa Zimbi Lo Nu. Okay.
Maduba Gonsuna and Doba Gonvolo Nurnes. Taba Drima Le Taba Drudi Lolan exam Marva. What the San Don de Abdua.
If we believed that a rope was a snake in a dimly lit room, the only antidote or remedy for that would be to recognize that the rope is rope and that it is not a snake. So once one recognizes that the rope is a rope, it negates the grasping at it as a snake, because one is no longer mistaken with regards to the object, and he or she necessarily knows its reality, that it's a rope. If someone were to come in the room and say, it isn't an elephant, so someone is grasping at as being a rope, as a snake rather, and then someone comes in and says, well, it's not an elephant. This in no way gets rid of that mistaken view, and in no way then gets rid of the fear and so forth that comes from the mistaken view that the person who believes it as a snake has. The only thing that will get rid of the mistaken view is the truth, the actual nature that it is a rope. Likewise, the only thing that will get rid of the wrong view that conceives things that are suffering as happy is the correct view that these things are forms of suffering. So one necessarily must recognize the actual nature of these things. So it is a wrong view that believes that these things that are suffering are happy, and believes that these things that are pleasant or that are unpleasant are pleasant. So this is a wrong view. It is actually a mind that grasps at things as being happy. So one has this mind that grasps at things as being happy or not suffering, and then the only thing that can harm that mistaken view is the understanding that things are suffering and that they are not happy. So this serves to harm that mistaken view, or serves as a remedy to the mistaken view that believes that these unpleasant things are pleasant, and that these things that are suffering are actually forms of happiness. It's necessary to then, as in the case of the snake, present the proper view in order to negate the mistaken view. So with the rope, it's necessary to present the proper view that it's not a snake, that it's a rope. In the case of reality, we have to present that things that are conceived of as happy are actually suffering. Things that are conceived of as pleasant are actually unpleasant. So this allows us to abandon and harm that grasping at it as being happy, and that itself is a wrong view.
Shangsu Modan Game, Shidney, Satu means Shangju Sandang, Shabat and Hishamatozo, Gawajada Dutch, what the Moba Denzi Maribadan, Zendang Mange Maris, Mange Maita, Shangju Sanda, Shabadan, Hinjatuzoge, Denzin Tajo 2 Maris, Denzin was not 2 Maris. Denzin was never there. 네, 춘나 대범마르 시블로데게 덴질 너너레스 타바 드마임 시블로데 덴질 로나바나지 춘나 대범마르 시블로데게 대바 드완질로 차치레스 샤수 모던 게메셔 신드냐바 차주미스 춘나 대범마르 시블로데 덴질 당 제당고선 게와 예자 덴질 차주그레스 뭐도 잡무데 아
The Long Nipa?
Shangsu Modan Game, Shidney, Satu, to the Nade is Nade. Shangsu Modan Game, Shidney, Satu, Shangju said the Nishamatuzo, and the Goaloch for water. Then this Satu 2 Maris. Then this the Mabajilla Mene, the Dangos and Go, my behavior. Then this Satu and Tony to share the Denzita, Mabajilla Mene, the Dangos and Go in behavior. What does it happen to
So it's necessary, in order to get rid of the grasping at true establishment, it's necessary to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. It doesn't matter how many eons one meditates upon bodhicitta and love and compassion. Even though these things are virtuous activities, they will never strike at the grasping at true establishment or harm it. Because the only thing that will harm the mistaken view that grasps at things as being truly established is the wisdom realizing the correct view, the wisdom realizing emptiness. The wisdom that realizes that phenomena are not truly established serves to harm and negate the mistaken view that sees them as being truly established, sees them as being not empty. So this realization of emptiness is the only thing that can get rid of that grasping at true establishment. These other practices don't serve to reverse the mistake. So the only way to reverse the mistake is to have the mistaken view presented to negate the mistaken view. And this is the only thing that can negate it. These other practices cannot. And just as a translator's note, that connects to the previous statement that if someone comes in a room and says, well, it's not an elephant, that doesn't help because it doesn't get to the object of negation. So that's how that previous point connects to this, that the bodhicitta and love and compassion are virtuous practices, but they cannot get rid of the grasping at true establishment because they don't get to that object of negation. They don't reverse it. Digsun.
Salu Kusigrota, what the Devaros, doing him Kanderisana, and the Devare de doing him is, doing him to Sankarisana, Lenu Jijuachi in Bezer. Lenu Jijuachi is doing him what is.
Lay Nyomong
Jijuachi is doing him what is. Nandele, Matanya bit Nanshitan, Juanshi doing is. Matanya bit Nanshitan, Juanshi doing. Doing him either Lena Yomobi. And then could be and the cool puzzle do how in the Lenu in Bezer. Matanya be tension on Joanshi and Dugains, do him.
So one might have a doubt that arises and say that if the happiness of the gods and humans seems as though it is actual happiness. How can you say that it is suffering when we see they are happy, or there are forms of happiness. And we state, we find the sign of this implicit suffering in the Dharmakirtis, Pramanavartika Karika, the commentary on the Compendium for Valid Cognition, where it states that because it is arisen from karma and the afflictions, these states are necessarily suffering. The Dharmakirti makes this point that because these things come about from karma and afflictions, they are necessarily contaminated. They are necessarily the truth of suffering. It's a diksun. So now when we look at Jayan Sheva's outline, that completes the first category that we've named, and I've done this all with a dictionary, and I just got to do it more. The expression of worship and the transition from. The next category, which is called the actual, we find an outline that begins in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. I read all the way through down to the faults of cyclic existence are explained in 3 parts, right? Yes? Anyone following? I know I did. Chandragroman, I'm just in case, I'm going to read the 2 lines before it that lead into it. Chandragroman says that if you neglect to meditate on these, I did. Ignorance, attachment will increase and you will continue to fuel the process of cyclic existence. Hence it is vitally important to meditate on the faults of cyclic existence. And then it says the faults of cyclic existence are explained in 3 parts. So this is the actual in Jayan Sheva's outline. Okay, Rinpoche.
Teacher, Jabundin, Tumuyu, Lange Jimbala, Lujan, Samba Jam, Samba Jibisi, Tella Ludusa, Taba Dribi, Larger Rajitella, Water, Jabundin, Sajin, Lange. So the actual categories in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment are there are 4 actual categories in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So when we see the word actual in Jayan Sheva's outline, that's referring to the actual, these 4 here. We have first the mental training, and then a second category, which is the measure of the determination to be free. Third category, which is dispelling misconceptions. And then the 4th category is ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. So there are 4 categories in the Lamrim Chenmo, or the Great Treatise, and then Jayan Sheva follows that and puts it under the major heading of actual. Later, number 1 was calling a bunch of Nanu Samba Jong, Samba Jong, Nanu Samba Chipset, Nanu Samba Jul Chipset, and calling Yemesan Dana, Yesempo, Kudung, Tadanyabe, Sanlu Kaduchesuna, and then Nanu Samba Chipset, Yesempo, Tabat Yellow, Jonathan Chebalas, Lanzo Marbe, what is Cheche. Tela Lutu Sewa the what the water tend water, and then calling a bunch of somebody, and then Timmy Netugi, Netugi Lady, what the Shantus was the young legend and Jigmundus, to what you said, Lutu Sewa Teresia. That Taba to be larger as a Tela Power Tendon Lula, go down the Landani later. So then, when we look at these 4 categories, we have first the mental training. So the mental training is referring to developing the desire to definitely emerge, or renunciation. So wishing to emerge from cyclic existence that is brought about by karma and afflictions. This is the first category. So this is what the mental training is, renunciation. The next category, the measure of the determination to be free,
is the measure of that renunciation. Okay, so determination to be free is just another translation of renunciation. So how is that measured? And we find in Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principal paths where it says day and night, if you seek liberation, then you have transcendent renunciation. So if day and night you are seeking liberation, then at that point you know that you have renunciation. So that it's stating that there is no break. So night and day, or sometimes translated as always, but in the text it says night and day, seeking liberation. Then you have this. So I'm just going to check the exact quote. It says, you will aim for freedom all day and night. So freedom is just a choice for the word liberation. You will aim for liberation all day and night. Then you experience transcendent renunciation. So that's the measure of that renunciation, if you have it day and night. In the next category, dispelling misconceptions, will come up later. There is a thought that's presented that the bodhisattvas don't actually develop the desire to definitely emerge. This is really a Hinayana practice of the hearer's vehicle. So this misconception is dispelled later on. And then ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation deals with cessation of suffering and the true paths. This is what these the 4 categories will explain. Lesser. So the first category, the mental training, we have 2 parts: identifying the mind intent on liberation, and then the method for developing the mind intent on liberation.
사진이 제일 그런 사진이 도와 어때 사진이 제 담보 아니 타바 되는 줄로 뭐서 와스 담보로 왔다 담보 어떨란 자제비 사진 손지 말이야.
Okay, yeah.
타바 뭐서 와 되는 줄로 다 네 타바 준도 봐본 바스 어때 사진 손지 말이야.
So then the mental training, we find 2 categories: identifying the mind intent on liberation, and then the method for developing the mind intent on liberation. And then the first category of identifying the mind seeking liberation, we find 3 categories in Jayan Sheba's outline. The first category is actual liberation. The second category is the mind that is seeking actual liberation. And then the third category of Jayan Sheba's outline is what is to be abandoned. So what has to be abandoned. Jayan Sheba makes 3 categories under Lama Tsongkhapa's heading, identifying the mind intent on liberation.
So the
first category in Jayan Sheba's outline is actual liberation.
Duishana Sala Sobi Ruanga Chodan, Jeneji Gune, Nela Soba, Je, Pompani San Joane, Jimbi Yimbi, Tele Joane, Taba Wos, Taba Mozo, whatever the Imbade, Tabas Dakante, Leda Nyomo Jimba, Nazo, Kui Pomole, Rameba, could doing Pomanyano de Guadagarisana, Lena Nyomo Begini Horace, Lena Nyomo Begini, Jimba del Trua de la Tabalores, Lena Nyomo Jimba de Lenye Ponsona, Qual Taroda, Jimbal Tunura, Tabasca daughter Zeres. Nazukarato, the Nazulu Chingrota,
Then Kaba or Ka? Rinpoche? The Lamrim Chenmo? Lamrim Chenmo Kaba Ka? Lesso. Lesso.
Lama in Kaka Doma in Dundusun, Nandusun, Lori to the race.
Lesso de Basu.
Kenaj want Jena, Nagelas was Je. Nage to
Lesso.
what the Jemara.
Lesso.
What the Kalelun could easy to loot.
So, liberation means freedom from bondage, and what binds you to cyclic existence is karma and the afflictions. Under their power, the aggregates are reborn in a threefold manner. In terms of the three realms, they are reborn in the desire realm and so forth. In terms of kinds of beings, they are reborn as the 5 or the 6 kinds of beings, and in terms of the type of birth, they are reborn in 4 ways: by birth from a womb, birth from eggs, birth from heat and moisture, and spontaneous birth. Since this is the nature of bondage, freedom from rebirth impelled by karma and the afflictions is liberation. So here, it's stating that liberation means freedom from bondage and what binds you to cyclic existence. So here we are bound by our karma and afflictions to cyclic existence, and we have no independence because we are under their power. So here, this is, under their power means that we have no independence because we are under control. And we are controlled by our karma and afflictions. So it's like being tied up by our karma and afflictions. And when we abandon our karma and afflictions, it's like being untied or being freed from bondage. And this is liberation. Under their power, the aggregates are born in threefold manner. In terms of the 3 realms, so 3 realms are referring to the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. These are the various places of rebirth. And then it says they are reborn as 5 or 6 beings. These parentheses were put in by the committee. We find this point made in Basu Chuji Jetsun's commentary, where it states that the 5 beings, if we are to go in the order of 5, then demigods are included within gods. So we have hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human gods. And then if we look at the order by 6, then demigods would have their own category. So it'd be hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, god, demigods, gods. So this is the difference. So if we say 5 realms of cyclic existence or 6 realms, it really depends upon whether we posit the demigods as an actual realm or put that into the God's realm itself. It says then, in terms of birth, they are reborn in the 4 ways. So there are 4 different ways to be born: from womb, from egg, from heat and moisture, and then miraculous birth or spontaneous birth. So once one gets rid of the karma and afflictions, then this is liberation. This is freedom from bondage, freedom from that being tied and not having independence because of the karma and afflictions, and then being free and having that independence. This is liberation. Digson.
What the Catulo, the Moshe, and the Kanson, and the Kantuji, Kantu, what the Kamotion was, Kantuji, Kantu, Kansun.
So when we look at this word, 3 realms, the 3 realms, we can also, sometimes it's translated as constituent. And we can divide that into other categories as well, by way of 18 or by way of 6, or in this case by way of 3. So there are a lot of information within this that we could go over. So Rinpoche is just saying as an aside, when we're looking at these numbers, we can then also know that if we break it down further, we have 18 or 6 and so forth in terms of constituents. Less so.
And then and then Lama is Lama Ilhayina, Mama May Batas, that's it on Galas.
Lama
Ilhayina, Mama May Batas.
Me Mayin, Ale, Lamayin, Me Mayin. Okay. Okay, so this is going to require some. Just give me a moment. So then if we use it as 5, if we state that there are 5 realms of cyclic existence, then we state that there are hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, and gods. And demigods are in the gods realm. If we state that there are 6 realms, and there's hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, demigod, god. So this is the difference. So then a question comes up. If we state that there are 5 realms, because the demigods can, it's okay if we fit them into the category of gods. If you look at the Tibetan for demigod, I have to tell you the Tibetan in order for this to work. So the Tibetan for God is Hla. The Tibetan for demigod is Hla Mayin, which is really, literally, is not a god. So we translate it into English as demigod. But then Rinpoche said then is human Hamayin. So not a human? So could you say that not a human's a human, because you could say that not a god is a god? If you were to say that a demigod can fit into the gods category. So we use the word demigod, but it's really ma-yin, is not. So God is not a god. So if we say that is not a human, could that be a human? So is it logical to say that it is not a god could be in the gods category? So we're looking just at the word and etymologies and so forth and seeing if there's any contradiction. So we have a doubt that emerges. So this is the presentation that Basu Chuji Jetson gives in terms of why there could be 5 or why there could be 6. So we have to think about this. And if we, just as a translator's note, Basu Chuji Jetson is one of the authors in the 4 interwoven commentaries that Rinpoche is using. So Jayan Sheba is one of the 4, Basu Chuji Jetson, and so when you hear those names, you know the other. The Lamrim Chenmo Delpa, the Chipa Jie, Jayan Sheba, Basu Chuji Jetson, then Sumba Jipa Suyin.
The
tree can, the giant shape of Basu Chuji Jetson, the Sumba Danji, Ngawan Rapchel, and another, and so he said we can look at the beginning. Yeah, so he said that we can look at Nge the giant Sheba Delboda, Gangisina Nge the Nima Dakpar Jutsu Yomari. Leka Ladro, Nima Dakpar, Ransen Yomari. Dunda Dakpar Leka Chegiyu. Okay, so Rinpoche said I have the commentary in my hand. I can just look at it and see what the other authors are. And I said I haven't had time to because I work every day. I don't have a vacation all the time to be able to study. So I just didn't want you to think there was a secret going on. So we'll go to the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shabi Derana.